Talk with a good friend of the program, retired Admiral Mark C. Montgomery, who is the executive director of the Cyberspace Solarium Commission and a senior fellow over at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Welcome back, Admiral. How are you?
Hey, Dwayne, thank you very much for having me. Glad to be here today.
My pleasure. I want to talk to you about what's going on since you spoke with Hugh last in Ukraine and Russia. We saw Operation Spiderweb, which was one of the more audacious and spectacular missions I've seen carried out, which seems to me to be changing warfare pretty dramatically. And then, of course, over the weekend, it was kind of lost in the shuffle with all of the riot stuff in Los Angeles. But Russia did their own counterattack using something like 400 plus drones and cruise missiles, and the Ukrainian Air Force took out like 370 of those. This is like right in your wheelhouse here. All this cyber warfare that's going on, and using drones to do a lot of the fighting. What do you make about what's going on, and how is warfare changing both offensively and defensively?
Oh, thanks. That's a good question. These were big events over the last 2 weeks. So first, that you've heard it before, but that Ukrainian attack was extremely creative and effective. It was also completely appropriate. Those were legitimate military targets, and it did some damage to the rocket force. I'd also comment, and it definitely looked to me from the damage I saw that they severely damaged or destroyed one of their A-50 AWACS planes. That is what we'd call a highly desired low density asset. And what that means is the Russians would like to have a lot of them, and they've lost a couple in combat now, 3 in combat, plus this 4th one on the ground. That's a significant loss and, a more than 50% degradation of their capability. So these were big strikes. They were important. The Russian counterattack wasn't that much different than 2 weeks before. The Russians have been sticking it to the Ukrainians with cruise and ballistic missiles. They've been ignoring President Trump's dictum to knock it off, stop these attacks on civilian infrastructure that are broadly killing civilians, because it's really indiscriminate, these attacks. They are clearly not military. They hit a military target every once in a while, but what they're generally hitting is civilian targets. It's to me, the one person being insulted the gravest in this is President Trump, and the insults coming very directly from President Putin.
I think you're right. So how does the Pentagon respond to this shifting ground in drone warfare? I mean, I know that we're constantly evolving our offensive and defensive posture here, but after seeing what the Ukrainians pulled off, I'm looking at all these these Costco container ships sitting in ports within a stone's throw of military bases and sensitive spots that we have. And I'm wondering, are we doing enough defensively to worry about any kind of a threat from the Chinese?
Well, I mean, the short answer is we're not ready. The longer answer is it's going to take a long time to get ready. And here's what I tell you. Like, I know, and I really like General Mike Gutlein, who's going to be the head of Space Force. The head of the Golden Dome initiative. He is the vice chief of the Space Force right now. And I desperately want to say not his problem, right, drones, but that's not how it's going to go down. He's going to get this problem too. So we're going to take the person who we're giving the biggest, greatest technological challenge probably since Rickover got nuclear power or Shriver got the ICBM in the 1960s. And we're going to say, by the way, while you're doing this thing that about space and shooting down things at the speed of light and blah, 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 we'd also like you to handle this little problem of the drones on the ground and the defense of basically 3,000 pieces of critical infrastructure, 4,000 military base, just a dramatic task. My gut reaction is he's going to get this tasking. And it's going to be hard because these are very different problems. They both can be helped a lot by new technology, emerging technology. They both have to have the cost per shot dropped. The reason we
Right.
don't do ballistic missile defense is because it costs so much. Drone defense right now for us, the successful system we have, Coyote, is, 100,000 a shot. We tend to use a 2-shot doctrine. So we shoot $200,000 at one drone coming in at $500 to 3 or 4,000. So that's a bad shot doctrine. That's a bad cost curve. And we've got to get that fixed. So from my perspective, this is yet another wicked problem for us. That's one we need to get on quickly, because you're absolutely right. If I could mention one other thing, you would be shocked if you were to draw in red, color in red, the land owned by Chinese companies in the direct vicinity of U.S. critical infrastructure, like engineering power, like electricity, power generating plants, or military bases. And the CFIUS, which is a U.S. organization that studies, tries to limit Chinese procurement of sensitive sites, has knocked off a few things, but the Chinese are everywhere in the U.S., and they're principally around our infrastructure. And that's not an accident, and it's a risk.
We've been warning about that for a long time, and even knowing that it's a problem, I am absolutely certain we would be surprised at the extent of how bad that problem really is. Mark Montgomery of the Cyber Solarium Commission is joining me, Dwayne in for Hugh. Since we're talking about the Chinese, you mentioned, I think it was a week ago, that Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, gave a speech talking about the CCP as an imminent danger to all of the democracies we share in Asia. And you said it was a pretty good speech. I didn't get a chance to see it. But you also had some recommendations for where he goes from there, or where he should go from there, right?
Yeah, so it was a good speech. I'd stand by that assessment that I gave last week, I would say the next step is the budget didn't match the speech. So the speech said, hey, we got a serious imminent problem here. And the budget that they turned in was basically flat. Now, I recognize there's going to be some reconciliation, get healthy money. But the problem with that, of course, is adding in $130 billion or $117 billion worth of get healthy money in fiscal year 2026 without increasing the base, the actual budget, means the next year you start out $117 billion less and are working your way up. And what's more, you now have to pay for the life cycle maintenance of the $117 billion of gear which you bought the previous year. So I am very concerned that we hover around 3% spending of GDP now, defense spending. Now we have a really big GDP, so I don't look at the Europeans and say, you don't have to go above 3% because we don't. Bull. We are spending a lot of money, but we do need to be spending around 4% of defense on GDP, and we're not getting there when you submit a flatline budget. So great speech, budget didn't match it. You know what? Tomorrow he's on Capitol Hill talking to appropriators about the budget. And I think a lot of them, in their oversight of him, I hope they stay away from Signalgate and all that kind of stuff. That's kind of like theater. And I hope they stay on the subject matter, which is, why is our budget not increasing year over year? What's your plan to get to 3.5% or 4% of defense spending? And what's the right priority? Where do we need to take risk and seize opportunity in this budget?
We have about a minute left, Admiral, and you brought somebody to my attention last week that I had never heard of before, a person named Shawn Planky. Can you tell us who Shawn is and where Shawn is being assigned, if confirmed, and whether that's a good pick or not?
So I like Shawn Planky. He is the nominee to be the head of Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, basically our civilians' cyber defense agency for the nation, with Cyber Command being the military one. They run the security.gov. They build the public-private collaboration with our energy, power, water, critical infrastructure, things like that. He's a great nominee. For some reason, his hearing was pulled down right before it happened. They still may vote on him this week. I think he's a perfectly good nominee. He'll be a fantastic leader. He's a retired Coast Guard officer, but he's worked in National Security Council, Department of Energy. He's got the bona fides to do it. That's someone the Senate needs to approve as soon as possible so he can lead CISA for the next 4 years.
Sounds like a pretty good endorsement to me. Follow